Okay, awesome. All right, thanks. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the September edition of the SLCN. I'm Landon from the Sugar House Community Council. Just a couple things. So before we get started, Turner Bitton is going to fill our secretary position, and then we'll hold elections in January for all cabinet members. At our upcoming meeting in October, we were planning on bringing all city council candidates in to maybe, depending on how many show up, maybe a 3 to 4 minute talk about themselves. We just thought it was important that everybody understands the candidates, and it's also a perfect segue into our first speaker. This is Lauren Schaefer from Salt Lake City office. She's here to talk about ranked choice voting. Lauren, are you ready? She needs to unmute, Jasmine.
She looks unmuted. I mean, she doesn't look muted. No, we can't hear you at all, Lauren.
Let's have Helen go first.
Okay, sure.
Does that sound okay? Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Helen Moser, and I am the Director of Voter Services for the League of Women Voters from Salt Lake. And I was asked by Jasmine, and Dorothy Owen had suggested I join the group as well to share with you a little bit about what the League of Women Voters is undertaking this election year as far as civic engagement. So I think that there's a deck that I can share with you. Jasmine, did you want me to go ahead and share my screen, or what would
Yeah,
okay.
You have the capability to do that, so go for it.
Okay, awesome. Give me 1 second, guys. All righty. And let's go view. Okay, can you see my screen? Awesome. All right. So it's going to back a little bit here. So as far as what the league does, I wanted to just kind of ground you in our mission and vision, and segue that into speaking specifically to what we're doing as part of the league's education fund to focus on voter participation, engagement, and empowerment. So our mission is pretty simple. It's empowering voters and defending democracy. And with respect to that, we have a vision that every person has the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate. And so we approach our advocacy and activism in a couple of ways. So first, we encourage participation in government, but this is through a broader understanding of public policy issues. And we formulate positions based on careful study of all of the issues impacting our communities locally and nationally, impacting our nation. And we are nonpartisan, but we are very much a political organization, and we strive to influence public policy through education and advocacy. And it's through our education fund that we really zero in on the work around voter participation and voter information. And it's through this that we register voters, that we provide a really comprehensive online guide to voters across the country through our Vote 411, and that we host candidate forums and debates to make sure that voters are receiving information that is unbiased, objective, and it's supported by really an approach that ideally creates civil discourse. So that's just some kind of grounding. And what I wanted to do is just share with you what we're doing this year from a municipal perspective, and then go down to the citizen level, and stop me at any point. So we've had the pleasure of working this year with a number of community councils, approximately 8 community councils, city recorder offices. We've worked with Lauren a couple of times, and the candidates themselves have reached out to us to inquire about hosting forums. And these forums have been either standalone events or they've been part of a scheduled community event, much like we did with West Point and Jordan Meadows for the Salt Lake City District 1 candidates, and that we're now engaging with the Poplar Grove, Glendale, and Fair Park community councils. What we found this year, and it'd be interesting to hear Lauren's perspective on this as well, is there is such an appetite for information. And we really attribute this to ranked choice voting, because ranked choice voting has a way of reducing the barriers for entry for candidates. And so what you're seeing is diversity and a greater candidate count for those communities that opted in, for the municipalities that opted in. And for that reason, we suspect that because voters can't just kind of select one horse in the race, if you will, and cast their vote for one person, they are seeking information to provide really unbiased, objective, and most importantly, a comparative view of candidate positions. And it's through that we have devised a forum format that we think really supports that goal. We are this year introducing an online question submission process for constituents to provide input in advance to help us build our question set. And we're making sure by kind of careful curation that the questions that they submit really adhere to guidelines around not, using language that is attacking a candidate, supporting a candidate, and that really brings out of the candidates a really clear, comprehensive view of how they look at community issues and opportunities, the positions that they formulated and solutions that they might bring to the table. And so we don't let the public directly pose the questions to the candidates. We're going to curate that and use moderators to actually present the information to the questions to the candidates and ensure that they're abiding by guidelines as well in terms of their response, and we're timing these. And so the other thing that we're doing this year is really reaching out to respected members of the media and print publications. So we have lined up moderators such as Robert Gerke and Michelle Quist from the Salt Lake Tribune, and Ben Winslow is helping us out as well. And I think that has a certain level, not only of brings a level of kind of professionalism, but also there's some star quality to that. And we're hoping it kind of drives more participation in terms of candidates feeling they get better exposure, as well as the audience in these events feeling like they have a really high caliber forum that is being presented to them. And the ground rules and our guidelines are really carefully crafted and communicated in advance. So we hope that everyone comes in with a clear understanding of the expectations, and that includes the audience as well, and that we can really have a solid dialogue, and they can walk away as constituents with a clear understanding of how to rank their and most of our forums this year are RCV municipalities, but they walk away with an understanding of how to rank the candidates based on issues that are important to them, the positions taken in a comparative view. And we're also trying to, where possible, work with municipalities who have better kind of AV capability, and that has essentially been honed through the pandemic in terms of doing virtual council meetings, to use that to broaden the audience by offering kind of a hybrid model. So folks can attend in person or they can participate remotely, whatever is most suited to their interest and any concerns that may have kind of COVID related. So I'll pause there, and just before we look at the candidate forums that we're hosting this year, any questions? Okay, and so here's what we have. Oops, hold on. Here's what we have in mind for this year, we have planned for this year. As I mentioned, we started out with West Point and Jordan Meadows, and that was in August. I've got a typo in there. This is actually September 28th for Cottonwood Heights. And it's pretty action-packed between September 28th and October 13th. We have Cottonwood Heights for districts 3 and 4 in the mayoral race. October 4th is in Park City for the mayor and council race. Then we go October 6th for Mill Creek Council Districts 2 and 4. October 7th will be action-packed with council districts 1, 2, and 3. And Sandy is kind of a unique situation. And this is, I think, illustrative of how impactful ranked choice voting has been. They started out with a mayoral candidate pool of 13 candidates. And it's whittled down through folks dropping out of the race to now 8 candidates. But you can see, particularly with this one, why these candidate forums are of huge importance to the voters. And as you can see from kind of the statement we have in here, it's really important that we come across as unbiased providers of information. The moderators will do the same, and the questions are going to be crafted in such a way that it does not invite anything but a really a discussion about candidate views and positions. And so the fact that we do not endorse candidates for office, I think, lends the league some extra credibility in this space. And then moving on to kind of engagement at a citizen level. So we, again, inform voters, but most importantly, we're empowering voters with information, and we do it in 3 ways. We do it through education and advocacy, and the league has taken some very strong positions this year around redistricting, ensuring that voters have a voice in the redistricting process. We've worked very carefully with the Utah Independent Redistricting Commission. We'll be hosting hosted a panel discussion last night with several members of that commission. And we work very carefully with Better Boundaries to give voters the opportunity to weigh in on maps and have a voice. Ranked choice voting, we've been behind this effort, and we're delighted in 2018 where folks were given the opportunity to actually opt in. The municipalities now have grown to 23, and we couldn't be more delighted because of the effect that is quite positive in terms of bringing citizens in to the process and helping them make an informed decision. And voter suppression, from day one in 1920 when we started, has always been front and center for us. And this year, we're taking a huge position both in fighting voter suppression at a national level and a state level in places like Georgia and Florida, and especially Texas. And we're mobilizing our member base, and through a platform called Outreach Circle, having them mobilize their own social network in supporting the HR 4, which is the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, and the HR 1, which was the For the People Act. And then lastly, ERA has been a big focus for us, both nationally and locally, and we've worked with the ERA Coalition on this. Our Vote 411 that I mentioned is our online platform, has seen a huge uptick. From 2016 to 2020, we had an uptick of about 127% in use in Utah, and even greater percentage across the country, because they look at Vote 411, voters who become familiar with it, as a source of information where they have information that's personalized to their area, to their district. So we give them kind of personalized ballots so they can see what is going to be on the ballot, both in terms of candidate races and citizen initiatives and amendments and such. and they get detailed information to the degree we can get candidates to participate in responding to questions that are posed to them. And this is where we, certainly need help from community councils and voters to really impress upon the candidates how important it is to get information out there rather than simply rely on voters going out to their social media or Facebook. And then we do a lot of work in terms of in incorporating a lot of what's going on with lieutenant governor platforms in terms of ease in registering to vote and checking status, as well as providing information in terms of key dates and deadlines, FAQs for the voter through this platform. And then lastly, we do a lot of voter registration. Unfortunately, the pandemic has had some impact on that last year. We've seen uptick this year, and we are actively participating in a lot of community events that give us an opportunity to meet with the public. So we've been from Heber to Harriman and all across Salt Lake City. And then lastly, we're supporting the University of Utah this year on National Voter Registration Day, and we'll be partnering with the Marriott Library and ASUU. And last year we did a lot with Westminster and SLCN. So this is engagement at a citizen level. Any questions or observations from your angle? Okay. And
hey, Helen, I think
yeah, sure.
Lynn has a question.
Oh, sure. You got your hand up. Sorry, Lynn. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Hey, thanks. I wonder if you had mentioned anything about live streaming or possibly recording these events.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, we are doing Facebook live streaming. We did that for West Point, and unfortunately, we're trying to kind of hone our skills when it comes to use of the technology, because what we ended up with was almost like shadow figures, and so we had
understand
audio recording. However, where possible, a lot of these the remainder of our events will be indoors, and so the challenges will not be as great. So we are going to be doing Facebook Live. I think what's important to note around this is that we've gotten inquiries about, can we use other platforms? Can candidates go in there and photograph or do their own recording? And we're very clear that we want them to use what we provide to them. We do not want candidates going in and modifying the audio file and just giving a segment that only showcases their views, because if they're going to use it, we want them to use it in their entirety. So yes, we are going to be doing that, and where possible, we'll put it out for later viewing if folks don't want to do it real time through our YouTube channel.
Thank you.
And thank you.
All right, Dorothy, this will be our last question, then we'll move to Lauren Schaefer. Can you unmute yourself?
Helen, can you talk about how you're going to structure your events when it's multiple districts?
With multiple districts, as we have for Salt Lake City, it really gets a little more complicated. And as I was reminded today by one of the candidates who said, you didn't allot us enough time, and we have a much larger candidate pool. So we're trying as best possible to use the limited time we have. So we're very careful in terms of getting questions in advance helps, allowing the constituents to actually, in the online form, give us the district number and the race. We have multiple races, but it is a little more complicated what we're doing with Salt Lake. And we started with just District 2 and then migrated to include Districts 1 and 3. And so, we're certainly, this is kind of our first opportunity to kind of pilot multiple races. We have typically done it with a single candidate race. So I'm sure there are going to be some bumps on the road, and we're welcoming any input both from the community councils as well as the candidates themselves on how to devise a form. But we kind of walk through and try and get things tuned in so we have enough questions and across a broad spectrum of topics and that are of greatest interest to the voters, and try and kind of focus in on those where we can, so that folks are able to hear enough information that they can actually do their own kind of comparative analysis, and come up with an outcome that will inform their vote when it comes to ranked choice voting.
Thank you, Helen. Thanks for coming. That was great.
Sure, sure. So I will go ahead and drop off. However, if you have any further questions, in the last slide of the deck, you'll find ways to get in contact with me. And we would welcome both input and questions, and any, certainly some suggestions you might have. Thanks again for the opportunity. I'm going to go ahead and drop off.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, Lauren, let's try again. Jasmine, what do you think?
I don't know, Lauren. I think there's a way that you can look in your audio settings on Zoom and make sure you have it selected the right one. Oh, she's gonna connect. She's gonna call in. So just give her a second.
Boy, this makes the discussion with Patrick even better, huh?
Yeah.
So just a couple of reminders, there's a couple of events coming up this weekend, which I think is great. Jason, do you want to talk about the 9th to 9th Festival quickly?
Yeah, you bet. Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Stevenson, co-chair of ELPCO, the East Liberty Park Community Organization. We have got our 9th to 9th Street Festival coming up on Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. It's pretty self-explanatory about where it is, 9th and 9th, 900 East, 900 South. We shut down the local streets there. And we've got about 110 vendors, a little smaller than in years past. Food trucks, political candidates. Another aspect of the sort of the debate and forum issue is that the candidates will be out there or have their surrogates out there at our festival. We have 5 candidates in District 5 right now. And hopefully it'll be a good event. I'd be curious to know, actually, Dave, from the Avenue Street Festival, if there's any lessons you might want to share just briefly with us about how that went. I'd be all ears, or we could connect offline if that would be more appropriate. But thanks, Landon.
Yeah, you're welcome. Lauren, you ready?
I am, but it just kicked me off Zoom. So give me 2 seconds. It's going to restart.
Okay.
I don't know what is happening today. I promise I was on a Zoom call yesterday and it was working just fine. Today is just not my morning.
I can hear you
But
pretty
we've
well.
been at the state fair. Okay, good. Okay, that makes me feel better. It looks like Zoom is just trying to connect me again. But yes, I'm here to talk about ranked choice voting. While I wait for Zoom to connect me, I'll just fill you guys in on some of the stuff we're doing. We have billboards all over the city that are going, a bunch of digital billboard ads about ranked choice voting. We've got a lot of radio ads, and especially on some Spanish radio stations. We have been at a lot of community events like Veg Fest and the Farmers Market. We have a booth at the state fair, and we've been working with a couple other city recorders who have come in and kind of helped us manage that. And then trying to think. A lot of our candidates have brochures that we've been trying to pass out. I've been coming to community councils. We're just trying to get out there in any way we can. So if anyone has any input or ideas on any more we could be doing, I would love that. Zoom is just not, now it's just not responding. 1 second. Let's see if it's going to be nice to me today. I am so sorry, guys. Okay. The moment of truth. I think it's working. Let's see. Let's see if it lets me in. Says I'm waiting for the meeting host to let me in.
I just clicked it to let you in. So it shows you're joining.
Okay.
So hopefully it's connecting now.
Okay, great. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
We are also going to be speaking to actually like 4 or 5 senior centers within Salt Lake City in the next couple weeks. And we have a lot of PSAs going out both in English and Spanish. And we have an AMA with the Lieutenant Governor's office that's going to happen on the 28th of this month. So we've got a lot of stuff like going on to try and just like promote voter awareness of ranked choice voting. We will most likely be sending a postcard to every resident in the city who has an election this year. So we have that going on as well. And I'm just trying to get as much info out about ranked choice voting as I can. If it doesn't let me in, I think I sent Jasmine the PowerPoint and I can just follow along on my own computer if that works for you guys.
Yeah,
Yes.
that'll be fine.
1 second. Let me
Okay.
just pull up your the PowerPoint really
I'm
quick.
so sorry. I don't know why it's being so grumpy this morning.
You got it, Jasmine.
Yeah. 1 second. I'm gonna share the screen. Okay. Can you guys all see that
Okay.
now?
Yeah.
Great. So like everyone said, and like I've been talking about, I'm going to talk to you guys today about ranked choice voting, which is what we're doing for the municipal general election on November 2nd this year. And then if you want to go to the next slide. The Salt Lake City Council opted into the program around March. It's also known as ranked choice voting, instant runoff voting, but the formal title in the legislature is the Municipal Alternate Voting Methods Pilot Project. Basically, what happens with this, it's that the legislature is giving cities the option to opt into a pilot program about ranked choice voting until 2026. So on odd number years, municipalities can either opt in or opt out of the program. And Salt Lake City opted in, and we chose not to hold a primary. And then the next slide. It's best used for single winner elections. In 2019, Payson and Vineyard were the only 2 cities that had opted into the pilot program. And they both came back and said them and their candidates and a lot of their constituency also really liked the program and liked how it worked. And then the state often does an audit with it, so a lot of that got taken care of too. And because of all of those results and feedback, 21 other cities have joined this year, which you guys can see there. Salt Lake City specifically, we've been trying to work with a lot of them, done a lot of stuff with Sandy. They've been helping a lot with the state fair. They've done an AMA with us. So I'd say a lot of the cities that are doing ranked choice voting are trying to work together to just get as much information out there to any voters as possible. And then the next slide, and now I'm apparently joining. But ballots will allow up to 10 candidates to be ranked. In Salt Lake City, the largest race is 5. So it's not going to be as big as 10, although you guys did hear in Sandy, it was almost over 10. Voters will rank their candidates in order of preference. So basically, instead of voting for your one candidate that you like, you now get to vote in order of preference. You'll rank all the candidates or just mark your preferred candidate at the top. You can basically do like your top 2, your top 3, your top 4. If you only like one person, just the one person. The only thing is you can't skip a ranking. And then once all the ballots are turned in, so all the first choice votes are tabulated. And if there's no clear winner over 50%, it goes into elimination rounds, which basically means if you have your top group of candidates, your candidate with the lowest first choice votes is eliminated, and anyone who voted for that candidate, their vote will transfer to their second choice, and they'll retabulate until someone is a clear winner over the 50%. Next slide. And then what this means. So If a voter chooses to only rank one candidate, it just has to be their first choice. So you couldn't vote for one and put them in as your second choice because the tabulation equipment has to see it in order of ranking. Rankings can't be skipped, meaning there must be a first, second, and third choice. If you skip a second choice, your vote wouldn't count anything after your first. This is something that's going to be on sample ballot language. The county clerk is working on that right now. We've put it a lot in our materials and outreach that we've done so that voters shouldn't be surprised. And basically, we've kind of talked about this already, but if you choose one candidate and that candidate's eliminated, your vote wouldn't transfer if you had only voted, like if you hadn't put them in the correct ranking. Okay, next slide. This is the fun part. So I mean, theoretically, this might not happen, but from someone who worked in the lieutenant governor's office, I've seen this, or used to work in the lieutenant governor's office, I've seen this a lot. Ties are broken by lot in Utah. So say we go through the elimination round and at the end, there's still two candidates that are tied. We have to break it by lot. Examples are a coin toss, draw straws, rock, paper, scissors. I've heard of candidates in the past doing like arguing about a foot race or like a card game. So it really is just whatever the candidates agree on is how you break your lot. The candidates have to agree on it, and then I think I have to help like agree and approve it. So that is the fun part. I have never gotten to do it, and I hope I don't, but that's always an option. And then the next slide. So what does ranked choice voting change? It pushes back the declaration of candidacy period from June to August, which already happened. So all of our candidates are online. If you go to www.slc.gov/elections, you can find them there. There's no primary election. It can save taxpayer money due to the lack of a primary. Elections can cost, honestly, sometimes up to like $150,000. So the lack of a primary election can save quite a bit of money. Tabulation will look different this time, but the time period remains the same. So by statute, tabulation has to be done within 2 weeks. The canvass has to happen on or before November 16th. And that's the same throughout all the different kinds of elections and the way we do it, state or local. The difference will be that instead of seeing a clear winner on election night, it might take longer to see who the clear winner is due to the elimination round. For candidates, though, it changes a lot of different things. So candidates often are more civil with each other because it's important to be someone's second and third choice. There's more engagement with their voters and constituents because they have to understand that greater understanding of issues. Like, I can't just appeal to my own group of people and become their first choice. I have to appeal to other groups and understand what their needs and wants are. So it helps a lot with candidates connecting with their constituency. They have a longer timeline to campaign, more time to knock doors, more time to get to know people, more time to do events, which a lot of candidates, I think, enjoy. And then due to there being no primary and no rush to make it through the primary, often historically we've seen that there's less money spent, but I guess we'll see if that's the case in Salt Lake City. All right, next slide. So this year there's at least 3 candidates in every race. I think there's 3 and 1, 5 and 2, 3 and 3, 5 and 5, 3 and 7. Every election in Salt Lake City will be a ranked choice election, and that is the only thing on the ballot this year for each district. So it's really exciting. That is the link where you can find your candidates. You will also find their declaration of candidacy and their website. Like I said, the districts up for election are 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7, but District 2 is only a 2-year term due to a vacancy. All right, next slide. So these are what your ballots will basically look like. We actually just got a sample ballot this morning for editing purposes. I think I posted it online just so people could look if they wanted to, but it'll look basically the way you see the one above, just only in English or only in Spanish. But the race itself is broken out horizontally. So it'll be names vertically, and then your first choice, second choice, third choice, fourth choice, fifth choice, depending on how many people are in your race. And that's how you'll rank them. You'll just fill in the bubble. And then we made it a little bit of an easier version. Salt Lake County did, so people could kind of get a better gist of it, which is what that other one is. And then next slide. resources. Like I said, we've been going to a ton of events. I'm trying to get absolutely everywhere I can as a human being. So if anyone has ideas or places they want to see us, like, please let us know. We have our website, which is the slc.gov/RCV. And then the website beneath it is the Lieutenant Governor's landing page for ranked choice voting. It'll just link people to their correct city and their correct city's information. And then we have a lot of paper resources. We have pamphlets in English and Spanish. We have a bunch of yard signs, stickers, buttons, almost anything people could want. So if anyone wants those resources, I'm happy to provide them. Just let me know. And then the next slide is just my contact information. So if anyone has questions, let me know.
I've got a quick question,
Yeah.
Lauren. Where
Yeah.
did you post that sample ballot? On Facebook, Twitter, on the website? I'd just be curious.
On
to
our
see.
website. Good question.
Okay.
It'll be the slc.gov/elections, and it's just
Okay.
a big link that says 2021 sample ballot, and it'll be all 5 districts that are up.
Awesome, thank you. The other thing I just wanted
Yeah.
to comment on was, I know New York City and a couple other cities have been doing ranked choice voting, and what's interesting is you start to see, candidates actually get not nominations, but what you call it, recommendations or endorsements, and they actually start ranking the endorsements. Like someone will say, I'm the second choice of this organization or this politician. So it definitely does percolate through some of our traditional election thought processes of all of a sudden, you want to talk about being the second or third choice because it could be helpful.
Yeah, and I know that one of the things that Utah ranked choice voting, when they were trying to help push this legislation through, their points were that if you have 2 candidates that are very similar, they could theoretically go out and campaign going, hey, like, you may like my opponent more than me, but please make me your second because we have a lot in common. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see at the end of the election how a lot of that actually worked for Salt Lake City. I'm excited, and I feel bad. The candidates are going to get a nice survey from me to see how their experience was and what information I can get from them.
We had an example of that at the street fair this last weekend. We've got 3 candidates running for District 3 council position, and 2 of them actually had a booth together and were actively saying, vote for me first and him second. And then the other was saying, no, me first, him second. But they had teamed up, pooling their resources. Interesting.
Yeah,
Tie
and
break would be awesome.
I know a tie break would be so fun for me because I get to just be like, do you want to roll dice? Do you want to flip a coin? No, but I think it's interesting, and it shows that they can't negatively campaign against each other, because if you negatively campaign against someone who is a larger pool of voters' favorite person, you've basically wiped out your chance of being a second choice for those people. So it kind of helps keep things civil. In theory, I guess we'll see how that plays out, but that's how it's been so far.
Hey, Lynn, go ahead and ask your question.
Oh, yeah. You mentioned that it's going to take a little bit longer to get the final results. Aren't these all tabulated by computer and be pretty quick?
Yeah, but the problem, so ballots come in starting mid-October and they go through a little bit after Election Day. As long as they're postmarked by November 1st or turned in on November 2nd, they can be counted. So what'll happen is, and it's the same in traditional voting as we've done in statewide elections, the canvass period will end on November 16th. So counties will have to be, we're contracting with Salt Lake County. So Salt Lake County will be counting votes up until our canvass period ends, or until they're finished. And Salt Lake County is pretty good. They usually finish it pretty quickly, and they count them pretty quickly. But what'll happen on election night is you'll get that large dump of votes from everything they've got from mid-October to Election Day that they've counted and processed. But because of ranked choice voting, as those other votes come in, it may change how the tabulation looks, because they may get lower second or third choice, unless there were a clear winner. If we got 50% of the ballots in and there was a clear winner for one race, that person would likely be the winner. But if they're still in the 20-30% space, as those ballots come in after Election Day and are counted throughout that next week and a half, and you start going into the elimination rounds, those votes will change their structure, because their second and third choices will become first choices, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Lauren. Thanks for coming today.
Yeah, thanks.
You mind hanging out? If anybody else has any other questions, they can ask in the chat.
For sure.
Okay, thank you. All right, next we're gonna go to Patrick from the city library to talk about when we all can go back in person, stay online. Who knows? I think in Sugar House, we're gonna stay online at least in through the spring. Our numbers have been really good, so, and just trying to be safe, but go ahead, Patrick.
Sorry, just as you called on me there. Okay. Yeah, thank you for inviting me to this meeting, and I hope I can provide you all with some information that will be beneficial. So yeah, I'd like to go over just currently where the library is at as far as physical meeting rooms and their availability, and then go into just a discussion of our virtual meeting room service, which I know I can see a number of people on here that have been using that service for their community council, and invite anyone else who is interested to use that service as well. And then also Landon and I had, sorry, Jason, sorry, I've been a little scatterbrained this morning. Just now, I remember both of those names in the email, and I can't remember who. I think I spoke with Jason, but we discussed maybe going over some security features and so forth. So as far as our physical meeting rooms, as you may know, we had initially anticipated opening those rooms on September 1st, but then with the increase in infections of the COVID virus, we decided to push that back. So our current plan is to reopen our physical meeting rooms at the beginning of the next year. We will continue to monitor, excuse me, we'll continue to monitor conditions related to the virus and may adjust that as needed. Sorry. It's just hope I don't have COVID, but no, I don't think so. Just came on all of a sudden. I do have a number of people on my email update list, and they've been receiving notifications about our decisions related to physical meeting rooms. And if there's anyone else who would like to be added to that list, feel free to reach out to the city library. And sorry, excuse me. And I'd be happy to add you to the list. And I'm just going to put my email address in the chat right now. If you want to send me an email with any questions, or if you would like to be added to our physical meeting room update list, I'd be happy to add you. So that's just reservations@slcpl.org. So does anybody have any questions just about the reopening at this point? It's probably pretty straightforward. So, so we are currently offering a virtual meeting room service, and we do offer that through the Zoom platform. It's available for almost any type of use. So it could be used for your community councils, or if you individually have other organizations that you're a part of, or just want to use it as an individual, feel free to reach out. That is fine. The only thing that we can't permit due to Zoom guidelines is any like commercial or promotional activities. Now, if your business does want to use the service and you're just doing like internal development, that sort of thing, that's no problem at all. But promotional commercial activities are not permitted based on what Zoom has set for their guidelines. To do that, you can just go to our website and under the virtual events tab, just click on that at the top of the page. You'll get a drop-down menu and you will see the virtual meeting room service as an option. It'll take you to our page, and there's some information, more information about the service, as well as the application. And if you do want to use this service and you haven't yet, you're not familiar with it, what we'll do is once we receive your application, we do try to process it within 2 business days. I will make a reservation, email you the confirmation. In the confirmation, it will include both the link to the meeting as well as if anybody wants to dial in. It'll have the phone number, the meeting ID, and the passcode that they can use to dial in. As far as the passcode, it is embedded in the link. So if they are just joining online using the link, they don't have to worry about the passcode. But if they are dialing in, Zoom is going to ask them to enter the passcode through their phone. And Zoom is really fast about that. So you got to be quick. It's just going to cut you off. And then if you would like any additional training, I'm happy to meet with you, just do a one-on-one, go over various features, go over safety, go over accessibility. And also if you're having a particular event, maybe I know we are working with some groups on candidate forums. We can host a run through where if you want to invite your presenters, and we can just start right at the beginning of your event and determine, okay, are we going to do an opening slide? Who's going to be speaking first? Whose cameras are going to be on? Are we going to use the spotlight feature? And just go through it step by step in case that helps your event to run a little more smoothly. And we can also go over all the settings and determine, okay, how do you want to handle your chat? How do you want to handle the waiting room and so forth? So both trainings and walkthroughs are options that we're happy to help you with. And then, and it looks like Janet has a question.
Yes, Jasmine, I have a quick question. I did contact City Library. In fact, I may have talked with you, so I apologize. I've had so many emails in the last few days and I've forgotten who I contacted, but they were very gracious, so it's probably you. We are in the Hillcrest Neighborhood Council. We're thinking of running our Zoom meetings through you. And one of the questions I had is, I think I saw where it's only available until 8 o'clock and our meetings run over. I mean, we start at 7, but we run over. Does that mean we have to just cut off at 8? I don't know what the rules are.
Great. Yes, thank you for that question. And yes, it was me that you chatted with.
Oh, thanks. He's so great to work with everyone. I just wanted to give a big shout out to him.
Thank you. That's kind of you. I'll just first want to mention, because I do remember that question. And if you are not finding a response from me, I do encourage you to check your spam folder for that reservations@slcpl.org email address, because I know that has actually been an issue a few times, individuals not receiving their confirmation or so forth. As an answer to that question though, so we did set times and a meeting duration kind of as guidelines. So we can make adjustments as needed. So yes, you can go more than 2 hours, that's fine. And then you're also welcome to go beyond the 8 o'clock hour. I know that some of our community councils start at 7:30, so certainly 8 o'clock would not work well for them. So if you do have questions like that, I do encourage you, feel free to ask me and I can let you know, yeah, if we have wiggle room and so forth. But yes, and then I will just mention, Janet, in case maybe that email didn't come through, I was just waiting to confirm. It sounded like you did not read the reservation from this month, but through the end of the year. And I just wasn't sure about this month, so I hadn't sent that confirmation yet. But I can go ahead and finalize that through December and send you that confirmation.
Yeah, that would be great. I think we'd like to use your services. We also have, and I'll talk about this offline. So we have a couple things, but I'll just contact you separately.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see. Oh, so the day of the event. So what we typically ask, if it's a regular meeting, we ask that the host of the meeting show up 15 minutes prior to the start of the meeting. The city library will have already started the meeting. And when you arrive, we will make you the host and you will take over the Zoom control settings and all of that, and just be responsible for hosting the meeting and then ending the meeting when you're done. That's also a good opportunity to ask any final questions, or if you want to try out a feature again. If it's going to be a more involved event, say again, like a candidate forum, we may determine meeting half an hour early would be more appropriate, or an hour early. So it's just based upon kind of your needs and what works best for your event. Does anybody have any questions kind of about that process, becoming the host, starting the meeting, ending the meeting, that sort of stuff? We're probably all pretty familiar with it at this point.
Hey, Patrick, would you mind explaining the difference between a regular Zoom meeting and a Zoom webinar?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, so we do have two formats available, so the meeting and the webinar. So meetings we generally recommend for like your regular community council meetings, because they do have the possibility for more patron interaction. So as you probably know, there's like screen sharing and there's chat, there's annotation, things like that. And with the meeting, you can kind of determine what level of involvement you want for your attendees. And when we get to security, I will highlight this, but I'll mention it now as well. It's kind of a balance between how much attendee engagement do you want and how much security do you want, and just kind of what you feel is appropriate for your event. So for a meeting, you can make it quite secure, but then your attendees are just mostly going to be listening to a presentation. You can almost make it as secure as a webinar, or if it's maybe your community council board meeting and you know who all the attendees are going to be, then you can pretty much open up all the features and not have to worry about security issues. The webinar is pretty limited for your attendees. They're basically showing up to listen to a presentation. Their videos won't show, their names won't show, they won't have profile pictures showing. The one interactive feature will be the Q&A. And so they can submit questions, and we recommend having somebody to moderate that. And you can respond to them directly or respond to the group as a whole, or maybe forward that question to one of your presenters for them to respond verbally. Chat is also available in the webinar format, but we have generally recommended using Q&A for your attendees and then using chat to communicate amongst like the presenters and moderators and hosts and so forth. Also, our webinar feature can accommodate up to 1,000 people. So it is good for those larger events. And fewer organizations tend to have that webinar feature because it is an additional cost, but you're welcome to use that through the city library. It is all available at no cost. So does that answer your question, Paul, regarding meetings and webinars? Great.
Hey, Patrick, before you continue, I think we're going to go over about 10 minutes just because of our technical problems. But if somebody has to drop off at 10, who's going to do a live community council meeting? Does anybody plan on doing the in-person? Jason, are you guys doing one next week?
No, we're actually going to do a webinar through Zoom. We signed up for a 1-month thing, but mostly because we have 5 elected officials coming and we wanted to have quite good control to avoid any disruptions.
Hey, what about you guys?
Sorry.
Fair Park is doing a live one actually next week, I believe. Mayor Mendenhall is going to be there, but we're also broadcasting on Zoom. We did that last time and that worked out. So we're doing both.
Yeah, Central 9th, we're going to try to do some hybrid approaches where it's in person, but also broadcast at the same time. It's a bit more technically challenging and requires multiple parties, obviously, to be helping. So, but that's the goal, because these remote meetings have generated attendance that we never saw before, and so there's certainly a benefit. it may be limited engagement. That's what we're trying to balance. Is it's one thing to have a live meeting and broadcast it, but then to also try to actually take questions or things like that is an additional complication. So, and that's hard, I think, for volunteers to do. So,
Landon, I think we got a little spoiled in Yocrest. I mean, I think, as Paul pointed out, we've seen our attendance go up because people can join the meeting in the comfort of their living room. And that means we have greater outreach, greater attendance, greater awareness, and that's what we're trying to do. I don't know, this COVID has actually spoiled us, and I hear that some of you are doing hybrids, and we've thought about doing that. We just need to find a place. We haven't had any success with that. I'm not sure, Patrick, if we can go up to Anderson Library. But that would be one place locally that we might try to get into. But we're on the fence.
It's a good place to be. What about you, Dave?
We've backed off any plans to try to come back in person for a while. We'll probably wait till after the first of the year when the libraries open up, assuming they do at that point.
Okay. All right, Patrick, go ahead. Sorry.
No, thank you, Landon. I appreciate that. In regards to hybrid events, unfortunately, no, our physical meeting rooms are not available at this time. And yeah, potentially not until the beginning of next year. So we do hope to be able to provide resources for hybrid events once we do reopen our physical meeting rooms. I can tell you our budget did not anticipate COVID. And so we are trying to work through some different options about what hardware would be available as far as cameras and microphones and so forth, and what sort of staff support we're able to provide for that. As the event services department, we are very small. We just have 3 people. So the staff support is generally fairly limited in that regard. But it is something that is definitely on our radar, something that we're currently hoping to be able to provide once we reopen those physical meeting rooms. So in the meantime, yeah, we're not able to provide the space, the hardware, the staff support, but we can continue to provide Zoom. So if you want that to be the virtual part of your hybrid event, feel free to reach out to us. And I have had very limited experience with hybrid at this point. So I will just provide 2 examples that I've seen. And one was one of the community councils who has already held a hybrid event, and they just simply used a laptop, had it pointed, my apologies. They just had a laptop pointed at a podium, and I was surprised at actually how well the video, but particularly the audio, came through with that option. So that did mean that anyone who was going to be speaking did need to go to the podium so that the laptop would pick up that audio effectively and also show them in the video. So as far as their other attendees, really wasn't as effective in picking up audio, and the attendees were not featured in the video. The library has just held one hybrid event at this point, and what we chose to do to manage the audio is have microphones available for the attendees. And we tried just kind of having the microphone like at a table with multiple individuals and hope that it would pick up that audio effectively, but unfortunately it didn't. It just sounded very garbled. So attendees did have to like take the microphone and speak directly into it. So for a community council, it might be someone running the microphone from guest to guest for your in-person attendees, so that they can speak directly into it. And you would have to decide if you feel like that's a measure that is safe, COVID-wise. Generally, this seems to be okay. We did meet with the Salt Lake County Health Department, and they highlighted, as you've heard probably often, that surface contact is not really a concern at this point. It's that particulate matter. But they do encourage you not to use those phone microphone covers because they do tend to gather that particulate matter. But that is how we got over the audio issue. I don't know if any of you would have microphones available for your in-person guests, but it did really help with the audio. And then as far as the video, we did not have a great option. We frankly just put another laptop at the front of the room and tried to get a nice wide angle view, and just to give a sense of this is who is attending in person. So not a great option at this point, and I'm sorry that we're not able to provide more, but does anybody have any questions about hybrid events? And I might be able to answer that for you. Okay, and I just want to go back. I know Dorothy had her hand raised earlier. Did you have a question, Dorothy? Okay.
Hey, Dorothy, you have to unmute yourself.
We have used the library both for webinars and for the community council meetings. And I can't say enough great stuff about them. I would agree with the other people who talked about it, but having them use them with the webinar and then getting the recording and then, taking notes from the recording has been amazing, and it's helped us retain our officers. And there's some personal advantages for them. So thank you very much.
Good, thank you, Dorothy. And I'm really glad to hear that. I hadn't considered that, the recording being beneficial in that way. So I'm glad to hear that. I will highlight, yes, you can do recording, you can do streaming through our service. Recording will be to your own device rather than to the cloud. So you just need to make sure you start that recording at the beginning of your meeting. Unfortunately, I've forgotten to provide that reminder a few times. But yeah, you as the host would want to start that recording, or somebody who's helping to moderate, and just record directly to your device. If you are doing streaming, we do need to meet in advance and just go over that process and make sure that everything is set up correctly. So I know that there had been a request to discuss security. Do you want me? I know that we've gone over.
We have about 5 minutes, Patrick, if that's okay.
Sure. So first of all, I'm just going to share a link in the chat to a document that I've created. So you're all welcome to take a look at that. It's actually a rather large document, so I wouldn't encourage you to just sit and read through the whole thing unless you really are curious about Zoom. Some of it is pretty beginner and at this point may not be relevant for you, but there are two sections in particular that might be beneficial. One is security and one is accessibility, and it just provides some recommendations in those areas. Regarding security, I want to highlight 4 items. So the most important thing that is going to be beneficial to you is using that security button that you see in the control panel when you are a host or co-host. When you click on that security button, you are going to get a pop-up menu. And that is where you can set the majority of your settings for all of your attendees. So it's going to include chat, it's going to include screen sharing, it's going to include renaming, profile pictures, and so forth. And so when you enable those, there's a check mark next to it. So just look for the check mark. If you don't want that feature to be enabled, just click the feature and the check mark will be removed. Then I would like to highlight that while the security button does address things like chat and screen share, it can be good just to double check those settings. So next to the screen share button, you do see a little up arrow. And if you click on that, you're going to get a pop-up menu, and there's going to be an option that says advanced screen sharing options. And if you click on that, you'll see that you have a few additional options. And I recommend generally limiting to host. limiting screen sharing to host. And when Zoom refers to host, it almost always means host and co-host. So if you do limit screen sharing to host, that means any of your co-hosts can screen share as well. So if you have a guest presenter, it's good to make them a co-host as soon as they arrive so that they can do screen sharing, but it would prevent your average attendee from screen sharing. For chat, you do want to click on the chat icon in the control panel, and it's going to pop up your chat window. And down in the bottom right corner of that chat window, you may or may have not noticed there is an ellipse button. And if you click that, you're going to get a pop-up menu, and you're going to see a heading that says something along the lines, let's see, of set chat settings for attendees or something like that. I can't see it right now. I'm not a co-host, but and it just gives you 4 different levels of attendee engagement through chat. So it can be nobody can chat, or they can chat with the host only, or they can chat with everyone publicly, or they can chat with everyone publicly and privately. And again, it's really up to you what works best for your meeting as far as how much chat you want to enable attendees to be involved with. I will highlight one item. If you do select the host only option, then when an attendee clicks the drop-down menu to select somebody to chat with, they are going to see anyone marked as a host or co-host, and they're going to be able to select just one of those people. So it's not a message that's going to go to all people marked as host or co-host. It's just going to be one of those people. So sometimes messages can end up going to the wrong person, or an attendee may still send an inappropriate message to that person. It doesn't stop that. But that is an option. And you can also, if you're doing like Q&A, you can rename the person moderating the chat as, Q&A or questions or so forth. And that can help guide your attendees to submit messages to the appropriate person. I will say that we have had one Zoom bombing at one of our meetings, and it was a very negative experience for that person. And I'm just very sorry to hear that that happened. And based on their experience, we have learned that Zoom bombers not only will say inappropriate things with their microphones and videos, but they can change their profile to inappropriate images. They can change their profile name to inappropriate names. So when you're looking at those options in the security menu, it is good to consider, again, what level of attendee interaction versus security that you want to select for your event. And one option that can be helpful is if you are concerned about Zoom bombing, maybe you can really kind of lock down your meeting for the first 10 minutes. And then anybody who was thinking about, inappropriate behavior, they may get bored and leave. And then as you move on to just regular discussions, you can open up that chat some more, maybe allow people to turn on their own cameras and microphones rather than the host having to enable that for them. So I hope that provided you some additional ideas regarding security. Again, that document goes into a little more detail. It's kind of beginner level, but I think it covers most of that information. And if you would like more information, I'm happy to set up a time to meet with you one-on-one. So does anybody have any questions at this time regarding security at your meetings?
Awesome. Thank you, Patrick. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, my pleasure. And thank you for asking. And I'm really glad that we've been able to support the community councils and the community at large. So
yeah, thank you. All right. Well, thanks for everybody coming. Our next meeting will be October 21st. And like I said, we'll try to get all of the candidates for a few minutes to talk about themselves, and should be good. So we'll see you then. Thanks.